Jesus' resurrection is at the very heart of historic Christianity. In fact, the bodily resurrection of Jesus Christ is both a central doctrinal belief of the faith and the primary evidence for the truth of the religion itself. Given the importance of Easter for Christians, it is appropriate for us to consider a dozen evidences for the resurrection of Jesus. Number 1. Jesus' empty tomb. The Gospels recount that after Jesus' crucifixion, his body was placed in Joseph of Arimathea's tomb, only to be found empty 3 days later. This empty tomb is pivotal to Christianity, as Jesus' resurrection had been foretold, Mark 8 verse 31, Luke 9 verse 22, and finding his body would have discredited the faith from its inception. The account's early sources and the specific ownership of the tomb make a strong case against it being a case of mistaken identity. Moreover, early claims by Jewish authorities that the disciples stole the body inadvertently confirmed the tomb's emptiness, reinforcing the resurrection narrative. Number 2. Jesus' postmortem appearances. Paul's letters and the Gospels document Jesus' post-death appearances as physical and tangible, where he was seen and touched, not just a ghostly figure. He appeared to a diverse group of people, including skeptics and followers, in various settings and times, making the hallucination theory highly unlikely. This is especially true for skeptics like James, Jesus' brother, and Saul of Tarsus, an initial opponent of Christianity, whose conversions challenged the idea of a psychological misperception. Dismissing the miraculous nature of these events requires complex, less plausible explanations for both the empty tomb and the numerous sightings of Jesus. The simplicity and consistency of the resurrection narrative stand in stark contrast to these convoluted alternatives. Number 3. Short time frame between actual events and eyewitness claims. The authenticity of Jesus' resurrection is bolstered by eyewitness accounts reported shortly after the event. Paul, in his letters, not only claims to have seen the resurrected Jesus, but also cites others' testimonies to the resurrection before his own encounter. He references an early Christian creed in his first letter to the Corinthians, acknowledged even by skeptics, that includes the resurrection. This creed, one of Christianity's earliest messages, names apostles like Peter and James as witnesses to Jesus' resurrection. Paul's recounting in 1 Corinthians 15 verses 3-7 outlines the core of early Christian belief: Jesus' death, burial, resurrection, and appearances to Peter, the 12, over 500 followers, and then James and all the apostles. This sequence, affirmed within months of Jesus' death, underscores the immediacy and reliability of these testimonies. Distinguished scholar James D. G. Dunn emphasizes that this tradition was established very soon after Jesus' death, underscoring its historical reliability. The proximity of these accounts to the events they describe argues against the possibility of myth or legend, affirming the early and credible witness to Jesus' resurrection. Number 4. Extraordinary transformation of the apostles. Skeptics today often argue that believers too readily accept miracle claims without sufficient scrutiny. However, the transformation of Jesus' apostles after his resurrection challenges this notion. Initially, these disciples were overwhelmed by fear and defeat, yet they emerged as bold proclaimers of Jesus' resurrection, facing persecution and martyrdom with unwavering courage. This dramatic change, especially given their prior denial of Jesus, points to a profound encounter with the risen Christ as the catalyst for their newfound conviction. Among the witnesses of Jesus' resurrection were individuals initially skeptical or outright dismissive of his messianic claims, including Thomas, James, and Saul, whose name was later changed to Paul. Thomas, known for his doubt, demanded physical proof of Jesus' resurrection, a skepticism dispelled only by a direct encounter with Jesus. Similarly, James, who had been skeptical of his brother's claims, underwent a remarkable transformation, becoming a key leader in the early church and ultimately a martyr, driven by his personal witness of the resurrected Jesus. These accounts, particularly of Thomas and James, underscore the depth of skepticism that was overcome by personal experiences of the resurrection, suggesting that the apostles' belief was not a blind acceptance of miracles, but a reasoned conviction based on first-hand evidence. Number 5. The greatest religious conversion ever. Many notable figures have experienced profound religious conversions, including St. Augustine, Blaise Pascal, and C.S. Lewis. However, Saul of Tarsus's conversion stands out as a pivotal moment in Christian history. Initially the fervent Pharisee and opponent of Christianity, Saul actively persecuted early Christians, including participating in the execution of Stephen. His journey to Damascus around AD 31 to 33 marked a turning point when he reported a transformative encounter with the resurrected Jesus, leading to his conversion. Adopting the name Paul, he became one of Christianity's most influential figures, contributing significantly to its theology, missionary work, and literature with 13 New Testament books. Paul's conversion, driven by his claimed encounter with Jesus, is unparalleled, akin to imagining historical figures like Winston Churchill or Ronald Reagan adopting ideologies they once vehemently opposed. This dramatic shift, according to Paul, was solely the result of meeting the risen Christ, suggesting that only such a profound experience could have reversed his staunch opposition to Christianity. Number 6. Emergence of the historic Christian Church. Every major historical movement has a catalyst, so what sparked Christianity's rise to dominate the Roman Empire within 300 years and influence Western civilization for millennia? Christianity quickly distinguished itself from Judaism, primarily due to Jesus Christ's resurrection, as stated in the New Testament. The sudden growth of the Christian church is extraordinary and, according to Christian texts, was fueled by the apostles' preaching of the resurrection. This foundational event led to the church being known as the community of the resurrection. Without the resurrection, it's challenging to find another explanation for Christianity's birth and rapid expansion. The essence of Christianity, therefore, lies in the transformative events of Easter Sunday. Number 7. Emergence of Sunday as a day of worship. Originally, Hebrews observed the Sabbath from Friday evening to Saturday evening as their day of worship. However, the early Christian community, initially seen as a Jewish sect, shifted their worship to Sunday, the week's first day, to honor Jesus' resurrection as referenced in Acts 20 verse 7, 1 Corinthians 16 verse 2, and Revelation 1 verse 10, known as the Lord's Day. This change was deeply rooted in the significance of Christ's resurrection, which not only influenced Christian practices like baptism and communion, but also clearly differentiated Christianity from traditional Judaism. Without the resurrection, early Christians had no reason to mark Sunday with any special religious observance. Thus, Jesus' resurrection not only distinguished Christianity from Judaism at the time, but also underscored its unique place among world religions across history. Number 8. Plentiful early references to Jesus' resurrection in the Apostle Paul's letters. Critics often argue that the Gospels were written too long after Jesus' life to be reliable and that early accounts of his resurrection are scarce. However, this concern overlooks several key points. Firstly, compared to historical records of other ancient figures like Gautama Buddha or Socrates, the Gospels were written relatively close to the events they describe. Secondly, Paul's letters, which predate the Gospels, frequently mention Jesus' resurrection, providing early and numerous accounts of this event. Lastly, Paul's writings include early Christian creeds and hymns found in texts like Philippians 2 and Colossians 1, which originated shortly after Jesus' death and resurrection, some as early as a few months. These elements underscore the immediacy and abundance of resurrection testimony in early Christian literature. Number 9. The New Testament accounts of Jesus' resurrection do not resemble later apocryphal stories. The narratives of Jesus' resurrection are based on the testimonies of eyewitnesses and their immediate circles. These testimonies detail historical and factual occurrences, emphasizing the physical resurrection of Jesus' body, which was subject to empirical verification, unlike subsequent apocryphal tales that depict spiritual or visionary resurrections. The reports from the apostles regarding Jesus' resurrection are characterized by their timeliness, abundance, and distinct nature compared to other alleged accounts of resurrection. Number 10. No tomb was ever venerated as the burial place of Jesus. In ancient times, the graves of notable individuals were frequently revered. Yet, Despite Jesus Christ being considered one of the most significant figures throughout history, there has never been a claim of a grave or tomb permanently housing his remains. His apostles assert that Jesus' tomb remains vacant because his body was resurrected. This distinctive claim of Christianity posits that Jesus, unparalleled and recognized as the Son of God, triumphed over death. Number 11. A crucified Messiah would have been viewed by all Jewish Christians as cursed by God. Had Jesus only been crucified without rising again, he would have been deemed a false prophet, cursed by God, in the eyes of all Jews. However, the foundation of Christianity as a legitimate faith is reinforced by Jesus' resurrection. Essentially, the triumphant resurrection of Jesus gave meaning to his otherwise shameful death, transforming his crucifixion into an act of divine redemption. Number 12. All the alternative naturalistic explanations for the resurrection of Jesus prove false. Should the resurrection of Jesus lack a supernatural element, a plausible natural explanation would be necessary to explain the circumstances. However, all proposed naturalistic theories fall short upon close examination, proving to be either false or insufficient. Therefore, the failure of these natural explanations further substantiates the reality of Jesus' resurrection as truth. So what did you think of our list? What piece of evidence stood out as the most compelling? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section. And if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, share, subscribe, and turn on your bell notifications. See you in the next video.